Josh Duggar defense team files motion for acquittal or new trial. Fayetteville, Arkansas. KNWA, KFTA, on January 19, the day of the deadline for post-trial motions after Josh Duggar's conviction on 2 child pornography charges, his defense team filed documents with the court requesting a judgment of acquittal or a new trial. The motion, signed by lead defense attorney Justin Gelfand, is over 75 pages long, including supporting documents. The defense asks for an acquittal pursuant to Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 29(c), as well as alternatively asking for a new trial if that first motion is declined. The defense quotes the rule in question early in their filing. If the jury has returned a guilty verdict, the court may set aside the verdict and enter an acquittal, where, as here, the evidence, viewed in the light most favorable to the government, is such that a reasonably minded jury must have a reasonable doubt as to the existence of any of the essential elements of the crime charged. This court must grant a Rule 29 motion for judgment of acquittal. Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 29(c), quoted in Josh Duggar defense's motion. The motion explains the rule in more depth, noting elements regarding what crime was charged in the indictment and what the elements of that crime are. Josh Duggar's lead defense attorney, Justin Gelfand, courtesy photo copyright provided by Clark Little Rock. Josh Duggar's lead defense attorney, Justin Gelfand, courtesy photo. The evidence elicited at trial does not support a conviction on either count, even in the light most favorable to the government, the motion claims. The government failed to adduce any evidence that Duggar knew that the visual depictions were of a minor engaging in sexually explicit conduct. The motion continues by addressing video files submitted as evidence, and states that the jury had no evidence that Duggar personally viewed any specific portion of any of the files allegedly found on the computer. The defense requested an acquittal on both counts based on this. In the alternative portion of the filing, the defense notes that the jury's verdict may be overturned if the evidence weighs heavily enough against the verdict such that a miscarriage of justice may have occurred. It goes on to state that the court's broad discretion empowers it to grant relief based not only on the sufficiency of the evidence at trial but on any other circumstance that might render the trial essentially unfair, including trial errors. The defense asks the court to grant Duggar a new trial due to the prosecution failing to timely disclose exculpatory evidence, and claims that the government violated multiple rules of procedure and evidence by failing to turn over exhibits created by expert witness James Fottrell in advance of the trial. The motion explains that the exculpatory evidence pertains to Caleb Williams, a former employee of Duggar's at his car lot. The motion calls Williams, an individual who had access to the car lot and the HP desktop computer during certain relevant time periods, and they add that law enforcement had failed to meaningfully investigate the possibility that anyone other than Duggar may have committed the crimes charged. Gelfand brought up this possibility during the trial, stating his belief that investigators were "star-struck" by Duggar and did not sufficiently investigate the possibility of someone else having committed the crimes. The prosecution interviewed Williams approximately 2 weeks before the start of the trial, but he was never called as a witness. Williams apparently changed his story after being interviewed and sent an email to Department of Justice trial attorney William Clayman, a member of the prosecution's team during the trial, stating the following: Caleb Williams at trial, the prosecution established through forensic evidence and expert testimony that Duggar was the only person present at the car lot at the time that illegal child sexual assault material was downloaded on his HP computer. The defense filing states that Williams contacted the prosecution via email again 6 days later, stating that he had found a few more passwords, and saying that several of the Duggar guys asked me to run back end of some of their social media to help them sell cars. The court motion states that this email was not provided to the defense until 5 days into trial. For multiple paragraphs, the defense motion describes the importance of this email as critical, and that the government hid the ball from the defense during nearly its entire case in chief. This deprived the defense of the ability to impeach these witnesses with evidence that yet another person had access to passwords, the motion says. Had the defense possessed this information when it became available, it would have meaningfully affected trial strategy and provided additional fodder for cross-examination of government witnesses.